People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Epictetus. Jenna once believed happiness was simple. A dream wedding, a loving fiancé, and a secret growing quietly inside her. A child she hadn't yet told him about. She thought she had it all. But fate has a cruel way of flipping the rug from under your feet just days before the vows. Jenna had everything she had dreamed of. A wedding, a loving fiancé, and a secret she couldn't wait to share. She was pregnant. This was supposed to be the happiest time of her life, but the week before the wedding, fate had other plans. Ryan, the man she loved, had betrayed her, and her best friend, her maid of honor, was part of it. Jenna had everything she had dreamed of. A wedding, a loving fiancé, and a secret she couldn't wait to share. She was pregnant. This was supposed to be the happiest time of her life. But the week before the wedding, fate had other plans. Ryan, the man she loved, had betrayed her, and her best friend, her maid of honor, was part of it. She could have walked away. But why leave when she could destroy him instead? Stay with us, because this wedding is about to become the ultimate reckoning. Jenna stood in front of the mirror, running her fingers lightly over the lace of her wedding dress. The soft fabric felt delicate under her touch. The intricate floral patterns, embroidered with tiny pearls, caught the golden glow of the room's fairy lights. It was perfect, just like she had always imagined. She took a deep breath, letting the reality sink in. In less than 1 week, she would be walking down the aisle, marrying the man she loved. The thought sent a rush of warmth through her chest, making her stomach flutter. Ryan. Her Ryan. He wasn't just her fiancé. He was her best friend, her safe place, the man she had built her future around. They had been through so much together, and now they were finally reaching the moment she had dreamed of for years. She could already picture it, his smile as she walked toward him, the way his hands would feel when he took hers, the promise in his eyes as he said, "I do." She smiled to herself, placing a hand over her stomach. And soon there would be 3 of us. Her eyes shimmered with unspoken dreams as her fingers lingered on her belly, silently thanking the universe for this miracle growing inside her. The realization sent a wave of happiness through her. She had only found out 2 days ago and had kept it a secret, wanting to surprise Ryan in the most special way. She had imagined it so many times, maybe on their honeymoon, maybe the night after the wedding, curled up together in bed. He would laugh, pull her into his arms, press his forehead against hers, and whisper something like, "We're going to be parents? Really?" His voice would be soft, amazed. He always talked about wanting kids someday. This baby was proof of their love, a new beginning for them. Everything was falling into place. A knock on the door pulled her out of her thoughts. "Jenna?" Claire's voice rang through the room before she stepped inside. Her blonde hair was tucked into a loose updo, and she wore one of the silky robes Jenna had gifted the bridal party. "Oh my God, you look stunning." Jenna turned to her, beaming. "You think so? Are you kidding?" Claire walked over, touching the delicate embroidery of the dress. "Ryan's going to lose his mind when he sees you." Jenna let out a soft laugh, feeling her cheeks warm. "I hope so." "He should. Not every guy gets to marry someone who actually looks like a dream." Jenna rolled her eyes playfully, but she couldn't hide the way her heart swelled at the thought of Ryan seeing her for the first time tomorrow. Claire flopped onto the bed. "Are you nervous?" "A little," Jenna admitted, sitting beside her. "Not about marrying Ryan. Just, I don't know, the wedding itself. I guess, what if I trip walking down the aisle? What if I say something stupid?" Claire waved her off. "Please, even if you do, Ryan will still be obsessed with you." Jenna smiled, feeling reassured. For a moment they just sat there, comfortable silence settling between them. Claire had been her best friend for years, the one who had been by her side through everything. Heartbreaks, career struggles, late-night breakdowns. She was like a sister. And tomorrow she would stand beside Jenna as her maid of honor. "I can't believe it's finally happening," Jenna murmured, looking down at the sparkling ring on her finger. "I know." Claire nudged her playfully. "Feels like yesterday when we were sitting in your tiny apartment, drinking wine and laughing about how none of the guys you dated were worth your time." Jenna laughed at the memory. "And now look at me. Marrying the man of your dreams." Claire nodded, but something flickered across her face, too quick for Jenna to catch. Before she could think much of it, Claire spoke again. You really love him, don't you? Jenna didn't even hesitate. With everything in me. And she meant it. Ryan wasn't perfect, but he was hers. He had always been ambitious, always focused on his career, but she had never doubted his love for her. He was charming, successful, and confident in a way that drew people in effortlessly. Sure, he could be a little distracted sometimes, and maybe he wasn't the most emotionally expressive person, but he was driven. He had built himself from the ground up, and she admired that about him. Jenna knew deep down that Ryan loved her. She knew it, didn't she? A tiny nagging thought crept into her mind, but she quickly pushed it away. Of course she did. He had proposed in the most beautiful way. A private rooftop dinner, fairy lights twinkling above them, music playing softly in the background. He had held her hands, looked into her eyes, and said all the right words. I can't imagine my life without you. Marry me. He had made her feel special, loved, chosen. That was all that mattered. I can't imagine my life without you. Marry me. He had made her feel special, loved, chosen. That was all that mattered. Do you ever think about what life will be like after? Claire asked suddenly. Jenna tilted her head. After what? The wedding, Claire said, leaning back against the pillows. Like, once the fairy tale is over, when it's just normal life again. Do you think things will change? Jenna considered that. Probably, but in a good way. We'll grow together, figure things out, maybe buy a house, start a family. Her hand instinctively rested on her stomach. Claire reached for it, squeezing gently. I'm happy for you, Jenna. And she sounded like she meant it. Claire stood up, stretching. All right, bride-to-be. You should get some sleep. Yeah, it really is, Jenna nodded, standing with her. Claire hugged her before heading toward the door. Sweet dreams. As the door clicked shut, Jenna exhaled deeply. She turned to the mirror, brushing her fingers over the bodice of her dress. Tomorrow she would become Mrs. Ryan Carter, and she had never felt more ready. Lying in bed, she stared at the ceiling, thoughts spinning with the vows she would say and the life she was about to begin. She reached for her phone, hesitated, then set it down. Ryan was probably already asleep. She sighed and got up, wrapping herself in her silk robe. The apartment was dark, lit only by the city glow through the windows. As she padded toward the balcony, she stopped. Laughter, deep and low, echoed from Ryan's office. Her heart skipped. Was he still awake? On a call? No, someone was in there with him. She stepped closer. The door was slightly ajar, golden desk light spilling into the hallway. Ryan's voice came first. Man, I still can't believe I'm actually going through with this. Jenna froze, hand tightening on the doorframe. Then Eric, his best friend, answered. I thought you'd change your mind. What happened to all that talk about marriage being a cage? Ryan chuckled casually. Jenna's perfect for the role. Sweet, devoted, and best of all, completely clueless. Jenna's stomach twisted. Eric laughed. So you're really going to lock this down? Of course. She's beautiful. Smart enough to keep it interesting, but not enough to question things. A trophy wife. Trophy wife. Completely clueless. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Eric sipped his drink. And she has no idea about Claire. Her whole body went cold. There was a pause. Ryan laughed. If she ever found out, she'd break like a porcelain doll. She worships me. It was too easy. Jenna dug her nails into the wood. Eric let out a low whistle. How long's it been? Ryan swirled his drink. A few months. It started out as fun, but Claire, man, she's addictive. Jenna bit down hard, tasting blood. Claire. Her best friend. The same one who just hours ago smiled at her, held her hand. The betrayal hit hard. And Ryan wasn't done. After the wedding, I'll get Jenna to sign a prenup. I'll say it's about security, and when I get bored, move on. Damn, man, that's cold. Ryan shrugged. Marriage is just a business deal, and Jenna's just an investment. Jenna barely made it back to her room. As the door closed, her legs gave out. She collapsed to the floor, trembling hands covering her mouth, gasps choking her. Ryan, the man she had trusted with everything, had played her. And Claire, the sister she never had, was part of it all. She clutched the porcelain sink. Trophy wife, completely clueless. She thought of all the times she'd loved him, defended him, believed in him. She thought of the night Claire looked her in the eye and said she was lucky to have Ryan. It felt unreal, like some cruel joke she'd wake up from at any second. But no matter how many times she begged the universe to rewind, to take her back to before she walked past that door, nothing changed. Her stomach twisted painfully, nausea creeping up again. But this time she forced herself to swallow it down. She couldn't afford to be weak. Not now. She curled in on herself, arms wrapping protectively around her stomach. Their child. Her child. A fresh wave of emotions surged through her. Anger, fear, heartbreak, all tangled together in a suffocating knot. What kind of man did this? What kind of father could smile at her, kiss her, talk about their future, all while planning to betray her the moment she was legally bound to him? And Claire. How many times had she sat across from Jenna, sipping wine, laughing, telling her how excited she was for the wedding? How many times had she reassured Jenna that Ryan loved her, that she was lucky to have him? Had she been laughing behind her back this whole time? Whispering to Ryan after every call, mocking her for being so naive? It wasn't the first time Jenna had felt like a fool. There had been another man, long ago, someone who had promised her love, only to leave the moment things became real. Since then, she had worked hard to trust again, to believe again. And now, it felt like the universe was punishing her for daring to hope. Jenna clenched her jaw, wiping her wet cheeks with the back of her hand. She should leave, pack a bag, disappear before the sun even rose. She had enough money saved. She could buy a last-minute flight, vanish into a new city, raise her baby on her own. But then Ryan's voice echoed in her mind. If she ever found out, she'd break like a porcelain doll. Porcelain doll. Fragile. Weak. Breakable. Her entire body tensed, her fingers dug into the silk of her robe, her breathing coming out slow and measured. No, she wouldn't break. She wouldn't run away like some scorned woman crying in a hotel room in a city where no one knew her name. She wouldn't give Ryan that victory. She would give him a wedding. She would give him the perfect, beautiful, storybook ceremony he thought he was getting. And then she would burn his entire world to the ground. She wiped a trembling hand under her nose, anger welling in place of tears. The betrayal scorched her more than she expected, but within that heat, something solid began to form, an edge, a blade, a plan. Her nails pressed into her palm hard enough to hurt. He had used her, lied to her, humiliated her. Now it was her turn. Her mind raced, working through every possibility, every move she could make. She would need help. Someone who knew Ryan. Someone who wasn't already in his pocket. Only one name came to mind. James. Ryan's younger brother, the only one in his family who had ever truly seen her. She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around her phone as she scrolled through her contacts. She had never called him this late before. Never needed to. But tonight, everything was different. Her thumb hovered over his name for a second before she forced herself to press call. The line rang once. Twice. Then a groggy voice answered. Jenna? His tone shifted from sleepy to concerned almost instantly. What's wrong? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The lump in her throat was back, thick and suffocating, and for a moment she thought she wouldn't be able to speak at all. James must have sensed it. Hey, he said, his voice softer now. Take a breath. Talk to me. Jenna squeezed her eyes shut, pressing a hand to her forehead. Her voice, when it finally came out, was barely above a whisper. I need to see you, please. There was a brief pause. Where are you? Home. I'll be there in 10 minutes. No hesitation, no questions, just quiet certainty. Jenna pulled the phone away from her ear, staring down at the screen until the call disconnected. 10 minutes. Her hand still trembled, but this time it wasn't from grief. It was from something much colder, much sharper. She had made her decision. The cafe was nearly empty at this hour, except for a few late-night stragglers hunched over their drinks, lost in their own worlds. The air smelled of fresh coffee and something sweet. But Jenna barely noticed. She sat in the corner booth, her hands wrapped tightly around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Her leg bounced under the table. She was trying to stay calm, to breathe evenly, to keep herself together. But the moment she saw James walk through the door, everything inside her cracked just a little. He looked like he had thrown on whatever clothes he could find. Dark jeans, a plain t-shirt, a hoodie pulled over his head. His hair was slightly disheveled, and there was sleep still clinging to his face. But the second his eyes found hers, all of that faded. Jenna had always thought James and Ryan were nothing alike. Despite being brothers, where Ryan was polished, sharp-edged, always calculated, James had a different kind of presence. Steady. calm, like a storm that hadn't decided if it wanted to rage or not. Right now, he looked like he was teetering on the edge. He slid into the booth across from her, his gaze scanning her face, taking in her red-rimmed eyes, the way her fingers trembled slightly as she put her cup down. "Tell me everything," he said, voice low but firm. She hadn't allowed herself to cry since locking herself in her room earlier. She had told herself that she wouldn't let another tear fall for Ryan Carter. But now, sitting across from James, someone who actually cared, who wasn't feeding her lies, something inside her wavered. She exhaled shakily, gripping the edge of the table as she forced the words out. "I heard him," she whispered. "Ryan, talking to Eric." James's jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists on the table. Jenna felt her throat tighten. "He doesn't love me. He never did. I was just a trophy to him, a way to boost his image. And Claire," she let out a bitter, shaky laugh. "It's been her this whole time. My best friend." He bragged about it like it was a joke. James's expression darkened. Jenna's fingers dug into her palms, her nails pressing into her skin. "And after the wedding, he planned to make me sign a prenup. Then when he got bored, he was going to leave me." James sucked in a sharp breath, leaning back in his seat, his fists clenching and unclenching like he was struggling to keep himself from punching something. His voice, when it finally came out, was tight with restrained anger. "I always knew Ryan was a selfish jerk," he muttered, shaking his head. "But this is something else." He exhaled slowly, trying to level his breathing. "And Claire, are you sure?" Jenna let out a hollow laugh. "Oh, he made it pretty damn clear. Apparently, she's addictive." The word felt sour in her mouth. James muttered something under his breath. Something she didn't quite catch, but it sounded like a curse. He looked away for a second, running a hand through his hair, trying to process everything. Then, when his eyes met hers again, his expression softened just slightly. "What are you going to do?" he asked quietly. Jenna inhaled deeply. "I thought about running. Just leaving before the wedding. Disappearing." James studied her. "But then I thought about how he sees me," she said. Her voice steadier now. "A porcelain doll. Something fragile. Something breakable. He thinks I'll shatter the second I find out the truth." James's jaw twitched. Jenna sat up straighter, the fire inside her burning stronger now. "I'm not running, James. I'm not letting him win. I want to make him pay. I want him to feel what it's like to have his whole world collapse right in front of him." A slow, dark smirk tugged at the corner of James's lips, but his eyes remained serious. "So, you want revenge?" Jenna didn't hesitate. "Yes." James nodded, tapping his fingers against the table as he processed her words. He didn't try to talk her out of it. He didn't feed her some nonsense about how it wasn't worth it, how she should be the bigger person. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his arms on the table, voice low. "Then let's make it count." Jenna blinked. "You're helping me?" James's expression hardened. "Of course I am. You think I'm going to let him get away with this?" He scoffed. He spent his whole life stepping on people, thinking he's untouchable. But not this time. A strange mix of relief and gratitude filled Jenna's chest. She hadn't realized just how badly she needed someone to believe in her. To believe that she wasn't crazy for wanting to destroy the man who had destroyed her first. James cracked his knuckles, eyes sharp with determination. "Tell me what you're thinking." Jenna took a deep breath. "We let him believe nothing is wrong. I act hurt but forgiving, like a woman who loves him too much to walk away. I let him think I'm still under his spell." James nodded. "And while he's busy being a smug bastard, I'll get the evidence. Messages, photos, whatever proof I can find. We make sure there's no way he can talk his way out of it." Jenna met his gaze, her heart pounding. "And then, on the wedding day, we expose him, in front of everyone." James leaned back slightly, a slow grin forming. "Now that sounds like a plan." Jenna exhaled, her fingers finally unclenching. For the first time since hearing Ryan's voice through that door, she felt something other than pain. She felt powerful. James reached for his coffee, taking a sip before setting it down with a smirk. "This is going to be fun." Jenna watched him, something shifting inside her. She had always liked James, but she had never seen him like this before. Focused, unwavering, standing firmly by her side. Ryan had underestimated her, and that would be his greatest mistake. Jenna woke up the next morning feeling different. Not lighter, not at peace, but controlled. Every part of her felt like it had been stitched together overnight, carefully pieced into something steady, something unshakable. The hurt was still there, buried deep. But she refused to let it show. Not yet. She turned in bed, staring at the empty space beside her. Ryan had stayed at his bachelor party last night, or so he claimed. Before, she might have believed him without a second thought, picturing him surrounded by his friends, laughing, drinking, counting down the hours until she became his wife. Now, she knew better. She took a slow breath before forcing herself up. She had a role to play. Ryan finally came home that afternoon. Jenna was in the kitchen, carefully arranging a charcuterie board for the two of them. She could hear his footsteps as he entered, his confident stride carrying him straight toward her. "Hey, beautiful," he said, sliding an arm around her waist from behind, pressing a kiss to the side of her neck. Jenna stilled for a fraction of a second before tilting her head, offering him a small smile. "Hey," she said softly, as if she had been waiting for him all day. Ryan grinned, squeezing her hip. "Miss me?" Her stomach turned, but she let out a quiet laugh, leaning into him just enough to make it convincing. "Of course. Did you have fun last night?" Ryan walked over to the fridge, grabbing a bottle of water. "Yeah, it was wild. Eric got so drunk I thought we were going to have to carry him home." Jenna nodded, turning back to the board, carefully slicing a wedge of cheese. Her hands were steady. "Sounds like a good time." Ryan twisted the cap off his bottle and took a sip, watching her. "You okay?" Jenna blinked, glancing up. "What do you mean?" Ryan studied her for a moment, like he was trying to read something on her face. "I don't know. You seem different." Jenna's lips curled into a small smile. "I'm getting married tomorrow. Pretty sure that's enough to make any woman act a little different." Ryan chuckled, walking up behind her again, his hands sliding up her arms. "Cold feet?" She turned in his hold, looking up at him, her expression soft, almost shy. "Maybe a little. Not about you, just everything. The wedding, the guests, the attention. It's a lot." Ryan relaxed instantly, his grip on her loosening as he smirked. "Babe, you're gonna be fine. The second you walk down that aisle, none of that other stuff's gonna matter." Jenna exhaled, nodding like he had just said the exact thing she needed to hear. "You're right." Ryan leaned in, kissing her forehead. "Always am." Jenna forced herself to melt into the touch, to let her body relax against him. But in the pit of her stomach, something twisted. Not just from anger, but guilt. A flicker of memory rose, of a time when she had watched Ryan sleep peacefully beside her, whispering dreams about their future. For a fleeting second, she hated how much of that still lingered in her, how it made her question if any of it had ever been real. Behind every practiced smile, she bit down hard on the scream building inside her chest. But she let it sit there, let it fuel her performance. It was a dangerous game, and she was playing to win. The days leading up to the wedding were nothing short of a carefully choreographed performance. Jenna played her role flawlessly, smiling when Ryan touched her, laughing at his jokes, pretending to be the love-struck fiancé she had once been. But beneath it all, her mind was sharp, focused. He bought it at first. But Ryan was sharp, and as much as he loved thinking he had Jenna wrapped around his finger, he wasn't stupid. By the second day, the shift in his behavior was subtle. Longer glances when he thought she wasn't looking, his arm lingering around her waist just a second too long, his voice slightly more careful when he spoke. "You're really quiet," he said suddenly. Jenna glanced up, feigning confusion. "Huh?" Ryan's eyes were on her now, his expression unreadable. "You've been different these past couple of days." Jenna smiled, closing the magazine. "Have I?" Ryan tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Yeah, not in a bad way, just something feels off." She let out a small, breathy laugh, shaking her head. "I swear if I hear one more thing about wedding jitters, I'm going to lose my mind." Ryan smirked, reaching for her hand. "Hey, I get it. It's a big deal. You're about to be Mrs. Carter." Jenna forced herself to blush, looking down at their intertwined fingers. Ryan brushed a thumb over her knuckles. "You're not having second thoughts, right?" Jenna's chest tightened, but her expression didn't falter. Instead, she squeezed his hand lightly, looking up at him with just the right amount of vulnerability. "Of course not." Ryan held her gaze for a second longer, as if searching for something beneath the surface. Then finally, he exhaled, grinning. "Good. Because once you say I do, there's no backing out." Jenna smiled back. If only he knew. And James was always there, just on the edges of it all. Steady and unwavering. They met in secret, away from the eyes of Ryan and his circle. Late-night phone calls, hushed conversations in hidden corners, exchanged glances across crowded rooms. It was strange how quickly she had come to rely on him, how his presence seemed to ground her when everything else felt like it was spinning out of control. Tonight was no different. They sat across from each other in a quiet cafe, far from the main streets where no one would recognize them. Jenna stirred her tea absent-mindedly, watching the way James's fingers tapped against the table, deep in thought. He had that look again, the one where his jaw was clenched just slightly, the one where she could tell he was holding something back. She sighed. "You don't have to do this, you know." James's eyes lifted to meet hers. "Do what?" "Help me." She set her spoon down, tilting her head. "You're risking a lot by getting involved in this. Ryan, your brother." James scoffed, shaking his head. "Don't remind me." Jenna gave him a small smile. "Still." James leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Jenna, let's be honest here. You think I'd just sit back and watch him do this to you?" She blinked, caught off guard by the intensity in his voice. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration flickering across his face. "I've spent years watching Ryan manipulate people, use them like they're nothing, and I hated it. But this," he gestured between them, "what he did to you. It's different." Jenna swallowed, feeling a strange tightness in her chest. "Why?" she asked. James hesitated for only a second before leaning in, his voice softer now. "Because you didn't deserve this." Something in the air shifted. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world outside moved on without them. Cars passing by, distant laughter from another table, the soft hum of the coffee machines. But right here, between them, everything felt still. Jenna dropped her gaze to her hands. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she admitted, barely above a whisper. "Everything I believed in, everything I thought was real, it was all a lie." James didn't say anything right away. Then, after a pause, he reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers. It wasn't forceful, wasn't demanding, just there. A quiet presence, offering something she wasn't sure she deserved. She looked up, her breath catching slightly. "You're still you," James said, his voice steady. "You're just seeing things clearly now." Jenna stared at him, her heart pounding for reasons she didn't want to name. For the first time in days, she wasn't drowning. She wasn't gasping for air, struggling to keep herself from falling apart. She was just here. With him. And that realization terrified her. She didn't want to feel safe, not yet. Not when everything inside her was still raw, still broken. The last time she trusted someone this deeply, it nearly destroyed her. How could she start to feel something for someone else when she hadn't even healed from the last wound? The thought startled her. She pulled her hand back quickly, as if burned, tucking it into her lap. "This isn't the time, is it?" James studied her for a long moment before exhaling a quiet laugh, shaking his head. "No, it's not." Jenna forced a smile, ignoring the strange feeling twisting inside. "Good, because I can't afford to be distracted." James leaned back, watching her carefully. "I get it." She expected him to say something else, maybe tease her, maybe push just a little. But he didn't. He just sat there, letting the silence settle, letting her be the one to move past it. And somehow that made it worse. She cleared her throat, shifting in her seat. "So, what's next?" James exhaled through his nose, nodding slightly as he let the moment slip away. "We stick to the plan." Jenna nodded, forcing herself to focus. "Right. The plan. The revenge." She had to remember why she was here, why any of this was happening. But as she walked out of that cafe that night, the cold air biting against her skin, she couldn't shake the feeling that something between her and James had changed, and that scared her more than anything. The cathedral stood like a monument to perfection, bathed in soft golden light. Its towering stained glass windows cast colorful reflections across the polished marble floor. The air was thick with anticipation, murmurs of admiration passing between the elegantly dressed guests. Everything was flawless. The ivory roses lining the aisle, the soft melody of the string quartet, the crisp scent of expensive cologne and freshly cut flowers. It was exactly the kind of wedding Ryan wanted. Grand, luxurious, a spectacle. And there he stood, right at the altar, looking every bit the picture of a victorious groom. His tuxedo was perfectly tailored, his hair styled with just the right amount of effortlessness, his signature smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. He was at ease, shaking hands with a few high-profile guests in the front row, murmuring small pleasantries, knowing all eyes were on him. He looked like a man who had it all. He had no idea he was about to lose everything. Jenna stood just outside the cathedral doors, hidden from view. Her fingers wrapped tightly around her bouquet. Her pulse was steady, her breathing even, but beneath the surface, something electric crackled in her veins. She could hear the soft rustling of fabric as the bridesmaids adjusted their dresses. Claire stood just a few feet away, her back turned. Jenna didn't look at her. Couldn't. She focused on the weight of her gown instead. The intricate lace, the delicate pearl buttons running down her spine, the soft layers of tulle trailing behind her. Every detail had been chosen carefully, designed to make this moment perfect. And it was perfect. Just not in the way Ryan had planned. A wedding planner peeked in, signaling that it was time. The doors were about to open, the world about to shift. Jenna inhaled deeply, lifting her chin, a slow, almost unnoticeable smile forming. Let the show begin. The heavy cathedral doors swung open and the entire room fell silent. Every guest turned their heads, swiveling toward her, eyes widening with admiration. The bride, beautiful, poised, a vision in white. Jenna stepped forward, her movement slow, deliberate. Each step down the aisle measured. She could feel the weight of every gaze, could hear the hushed whispers. Ryan's smirk widened as he watched her approach, his head tilted slightly in approval, like he was admiring a prize. And that's exactly what he thought she was. A prize. His prize. Jenna held his gaze, her expression soft, unreadable. She let herself pretend, just for a moment, that she was still the woman he thought she was. The adoring, devoted fiancé. The woman so in love with him that she wouldn't see past his charming facade, past the empty promises, past the betrayal. She let him believe it. The priest cleared his throat, smiling warmly at the couple. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of... Jenna barely heard the words. Her heartbeat was steady, her mind sharp, focused on what came next. She could feel James's presence somewhere behind her, standing quietly among the groomsmen, steady, watchful, waiting. The weight of Ryan's hand still rested against hers. His fingers curled possessively around hers, his thumb tracing slow, absent-minded circles on her skin. To anyone watching, it must have looked like an intimate, reassuring gesture. To Jenna, it felt like a chain tightening around her wrist. She could feel the energy in the room, thick with admiration, with expectation. Guests watched with soft smiles, waiting for that beautiful moment when she and Ryan would exchange vows, seal their love with a kiss, step into their future together. If only they knew. She glanced at Ryan, letting herself really look at him. The man she had once loved. The man who had once made her feel safe, cherished. The man she had planned to build a life with. Now all she saw was a liar. A man so consumed by his own arrogance that he never once considered the possibility of losing. She let a small, almost imperceptible smile play on her lips. He was about to lose everything. The priest lifted his head, eyes warm, expectant. Jenna, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Jenna didn't answer. Instead, she slowly lifted her free hand. The room stilled. Ryan frowned slightly, shifting beside her. Jenna, he murmured, just loud enough for her to hear. She turned her head, meeting his gaze. For a moment she said nothing. Just let him sit in the silence, in the heavy, pulsing tension that had suddenly filled the space. Then finally, she spoke. Actually, she said, her voice calm, measured. Before I answer that, there's something I think everyone should see. Confusion flickered across Ryan's face, but before he could say a word, the massive LED screen behind them flickered to life. At first there was nothing, just static, a brief moment of distorted sound. Then the first image appeared. A photo. Ryan, shirtless, lying in bed, his arm wrapped around a woman who was very clearly not Jenna. A gasp rippled through the room. Someone in the audience muttered a quiet, shocked, "Oh my God." Ryan's entire body stiffened. His grip on Jenna's hand tightened. But she didn't flinch. Another photo appeared. Then another, and another. Each one worse than the last. Then came the messages. Screenshots of texts, vivid and undeniable. Can't wait to see you tonight. Wish I was in your bed instead. Jenna has no clue. It's almost too easy. More gasps. Whispers grew louder. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. And then the final blow. A video. Ryan's voice played through the speakers, crystal clear. "Jenna, please. She's just a trophy wife. Sweet, devoted, completely clueless." The room erupted. Ryan's mother let out a soft, strangled noise, pressing a hand to her mouth, her face pale. His father's expression turned to pure, cold disgust. Guests whispered furiously, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats, others openly gaping at the screen. Ryan stepped forward, panic flickering in his eyes. This is fake," he said quickly, his voice louder than necessary. "Someone's trying to set me up." Jenna let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "Really, Ryan? That's the best you've got?" The whispers grew louder, people turning to each other, murmuring in shock and disbelief. Ryan's desperation turned sharper. "Jenna, listen to me." "Oh, I'm not finished." Silence. Jenna let the moment stretch, let him sit in the weight of it. Then she inhaled slowly, and said the words that would shatter whatever illusion Ryan had left. "Oh, and one more thing." She let her hand drop to her stomach, smoothing over the delicate lace of her gown. "I'm pregnant." A few people in the audience gasped, the news hitting the room like a sudden gust of wind. Ryan's body jerked slightly, his eyes widening. You're pregnant?" Jenna held his gaze. "Yes." For a split second, something flickered in Ryan's expression. Something unreadable. Hope, maybe. Some desperate attempt to salvage what little control he had left. But then Jenna smiled, and the final knife twisted. "The father," she said, her voice light, almost conversational, "is not you." Silence. Not just quiet, a deep, hollow silence, as if the entire room had forgotten how to breathe. Ryan's mouth parted slightly, but no sound came out. And then, movement. A chair scraping against the floor, a figure standing. James. His presence was steady, calm. And when he spoke, his voice was clear, unwavering. "Unlike you, Ryan," James said, his gaze locked onto his brother's, "I will cherish her." Gasps. Ryan staggered slightly, like he had just been physically struck. His face went pale, his hands curled into fists at his sides. "You're lying," he spat. Jenna didn't blink. "Am I?" James took a slow step forward. "I told you once before, Ryan," he murmured. "You never deserved her." Ryan's breath was uneven now. His entire body tensed, like he was on the verge of snapping. And Jenna, she had never felt lighter. For a moment, there was nothing, just silence, thick, heavy, crushing. Then, all at once, the tension snapped. Ryan's face twisted in rage, his hands clenching at his sides. His chest heaved, his breathing ragged as his mind scrambled for control, for an escape, for something, anything that could undo the disaster unfolding around him. His eyes flicked to the screen still frozen on the incriminating texts, then to his mother, who was staring at him like she didn't recognize him. His father's face was cold and unreadable. The guests whispered furiously, their expressions ranging from shock to disgust. And then, to James. James, standing tall and calm, shoulders squared, looking at him with nothing but quiet certainty. Something in Ryan snapped. With a roar of fury, he lunged. The movement was fast, reckless, his hands reaching for James like he could rip him apart with sheer force alone. But James was ready. In a single smooth motion, he sidestepped, caught Ryan's wrist, and twisted. Ryan let out a sharp grunt of pain as James wrenched his arm back, sending him stumbling. His knee buckled, and before he could catch himself, James delivered a swift, controlled shove to his chest. Ryan went crashing to the ground. Gasps rang through the cathedral. Someone let out a muffled shriek. The sound of Ryan's body hitting the polished marble floor echoed through the vast space, sharp and unforgiving. James didn't even flinch. He just stood over him, jaw tight, eyes steady. "Sit down, Ryan," he said coolly. "You've embarrassed yourself enough." Ryan groaned, rolling onto his side, his face burning with humiliation. He tried to push himself up, but his limbs felt weak. His pride shattered beneath the weight of the stairs boring into him. His father's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Enough." Ryan froze. Slowly he turned his head toward the sound. His father, always composed, always in control, was staring at him with something Ryan had never seen before. Not disappointment, not anger, something worse, disgust. "You've shamed this family enough," his father said, his voice low, even, dangerous. "I will not allow you to carry our name after this." Ryan's stomach twisted violently. "Dad, you are no son of mine." The words landed like a death sentence. The room, already thick with tension, seemed to shrink around them. Ryan's breath stuttered, his vision blurring at the edges. He shook his head quickly, scrambling to his feet, hands shaking. "No, you don't mean that." His father's expression didn't change. "Get out." Ryan felt his world closing in. His father had always backed him, had always defended him, no matter what he did, no matter how ruthless his choices were. But now he was being cast aside like he was nothing. His mother turned her face away, unable to even look at him. His business associates in the front row were already checking their phones, no doubt sending out messages, severing ties, distancing themselves from him before the scandal spread further. He felt sick. Then, movement in the corner of his eye. Claire. She was inching toward the side aisle, her hands clutching her purse tightly, trying to slip away unnoticed. But she wasn't that lucky. A voice rang out, one of Ryan's cousins, her tone sharp and accusing. "Where do you think you're going?" Heads turned. Attention shifted. Claire froze, her face paling. I just need some air." "Air?" Another guest let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, honey, you need a miracle." A ripple of cold amusement spread through the room. Jenna watched as realization settled on Claire's features. She had spent years carefully crafting her image, the sweet, trustworthy best friend. But now all anyone saw was a liar, a homewrecker. Claire's eyes darted to Jenna, as if silently begging her to do something. But Jenna just tilted her head, expression unreadable. Claire's lips parted, as if she wanted to plead, to explain. But what could she say? That she hadn't meant to betray Jenna? That she hadn't planned on sleeping with her best friend's fiancé? That it just happened? Jenna didn't care for excuses. And clearly, neither did anyone else. Because before Claire could open her mouth, a guest muttered, "Disgusting." Then another. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her, thick with judgment. Claire's breath came out shakily. She turned to Ryan, like he was somehow still her lifeline, the one person who would take her side. But Ryan wasn't even looking at her. He was still frozen in place, shoulders tense, face blank. Claire swallowed hard, realization hitting her like a slap. He wasn't going to defend her. The man she had risked everything for wasn't going to risk anything for her. Ryan was already thinking about himself, about survival. And she was collateral damage. Claire let out a choked breath before quickly turning on her heel, shoving past the crowd, disappearing through the side door. No one stopped her. No one cared. And just like that, she was gone. Ryan stood in the wreckage of his own making, the weight of it all finally settling onto his shoulders. The respect he had spent years cultivating, gone. His family's support, gone. His power, gone. And Jenna, she was still standing tall, her veil slightly askew, her bouquet still in her hands. Ryan finally forced himself to look at her, something desperate in his expression. "Jenna," he started, his voice rough. She smiled. Not cruelly, not mockingly, just simply. Like she had already moved on, like he was already forgotten. Ryan felt something inside him crumble. The silence that followed was different now. Not the sharp, stunned kind that had filled the cathedral moments ago when his betrayal was exposed. The priest stood awkwardly at the altar, shifting slightly as he cleared his throat. His eyes flicked between Jenna, still standing in her wedding gown, and Ryan, who remained frozen in place, his world crumbling around him. The murmurs in the audience had died down, but the weight of 1,000 unsaid words still hung in the air. Then finally the priest spoke, his voice hesitant, uncertain. Do we continue with this wedding?" Jenna let out a soft breath, barely realizing she had been holding it. But there was still one thing left, James. She turned slightly, her gaze finding him among the groomsmen. He hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, but his presence was as steady as ever. His hands were still in his pockets, his jaw tight, his eyes locked onto hers with an expression she couldn't quite name. Then, as if making a decision in real time, he took a step forward. And then another. Jenna's heart stuttered, the air between them shifting, crackling with something unspoken. James didn't stop until he was right in front of her. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable, like he was searching for something in her eyes. Then, he dropped to one knee. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Jenna's breath caught in her throat. James reached for her hand, his grip warm, steady. "Marry me instead," he said. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even a plea. It was a promise. A declaration. Jenna's fingers curled around his instinctively, her pulse hammering in her ears. She felt like the ground had tilted beneath her, like the entire world had shifted on its axis. "James," she whispered, her voice barely there. His thumb brushed over her knuckles, slow and deliberate. "I know this isn't how it was supposed to happen," he said, voice low, quiet enough that only she could hear. "And I know you probably weren't expecting this. But you deserve more than what Ryan ever gave you. You deserve someone who will stand by you, someone who won't betray you, someone who will love you the way you deserve to be loved." Jenna felt her throat tighten. James's hand squeezed hers gently, grounding her. "I won't hurt you like he did," he continued. "I won't lie to you. I won't use you. I'll spend every single day proving to you that you are not a prize to be won, but a woman to be cherished." Jenna's vision blurred slightly. She had spent so much time feeling like a fool, feeling used, discarded. She had spent nights wondering if she had ever really been loved at all. But standing here, looking down at James, the man who had been by her side through all of this, she realized something. He had always seen her, not as a trophy, not as someone to manipulate, just, Jenna's breath trembled, and for a heartbeat, all the pain, betrayal, and grief melted into awe. Someone was choosing her, not for appearance, not for power, but for who she was. Truly, wholly, now. Her lips parted slightly, her heart pounding. But before she could say anything, a bitter, broken voice cut through the silence. "You've got to be kidding me, Ryan." He was still standing there, disheveled and humiliated, but now his expression was twisted with something else. Pure rage. His laugh was sharp, humorless. "This is some kind of joke, right? You think this changes anything?" James didn't even look at him. His eyes remained locked onto Jenna's, as if Ryan didn't exist, as if nothing else in the room mattered. Jenna felt something shift inside her. For so long, she had been looking for closure, looking for some grand moment where she would finally feel like she had won. But she didn't need it, because Ryan had already lost. She squeezed James's hand back, steadying herself. And then, without hesitating, without looking back, she nodded. "Yes." The cathedral erupted. Gasps, shouts, an excited murmur swept through the crowd. James's lips parted slightly, like he hadn't expected her to actually say it. But then his face broke into a slow, breathtaking smile. The kind of smile she had never seen on Ryan. The kind of smile that meant something. He stood up, his grip still firm in hers, his presence still warm and unwavering. The priest, who had clearly never dealt with a situation like this before, cleared his throat again. "Well then, shall we continue?" Jenna exhaled softly, turning back toward the altar. She glanced at the aisle, at the guests still gaping at her, at Ryan, at James. She saw the stunned faces of Ryan's parents, the judgmental stares from the business elites, the sharp gleam of 100 phones recording every second of this moment. Then she turned to James and smiled. "Yes," she said again, her voice stronger this time. "Let's continue." Ryan let out a strangled sound, like he was about to say something, but his father's cold stare shut him down before he could even open his mouth. And just like that, the priest straightened his shoulders and began again. This time when Jenna said, "I do," she meant it. James slid the ring onto her finger, his touch lingering, warm, steady. The weight of the moment settled between them. Raw, unshakable. Still looking slightly stunned, the priest cleared his throat again. "You may now kiss the bride." Jenna barely had a second to react before James cupped her face gently, his hands steady, like this had always been meant to happen. His touch was warm, grounding. Nothing like the cold, calculated way Ryan had once held her. He hesitated for just a second, like he was giving her the chance to pull away, like he wanted this to be her choice. But she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in. The moment their lips met, the world around them disappeared. The gasps, the whispers, the weight of 100 stares. All of it faded into nothing. James kissed her like a promise, like a vow that went deeper than words. And for the first time in a long time, Jenna wasn't thinking about the past. She wasn't thinking about Ryan, about betrayal, about pain. She was thinking about this moment, about the way James's hands held her like she was something precious, about the quiet intensity behind the way his lips moved against hers. Firm but careful, deep but patient, as if he was savoring every second. When they finally pulled apart, James rested his forehead against hers, his breath warm against her skin. Jenna's heart pounded, but she wasn't nervous. She was sure. A slow, knowing smile tugged at James's lips. "You're stuck with me now?" he murmured. Jenna let out a soft laugh, the first real, genuine laugh she had felt in what seemed like forever. "Good," she whispered, and as the room erupted into cheers, as James laced his fingers through hers and pulled her close again, Jenna knew. This was exactly where she was meant to be. The reception was bathed in golden light. The soft glow of fairy lights strung between the trees cast everything in a warm, dreamlike haze. Laughter and music filled the air, blending seamlessly with the clinking of champagne glasses and the distant hum of conversation. The night was alive, full of celebration, of whispered congratulations, of stolen glances and new beginnings. And yet, standing in the shadows just beyond the reach of the lights, Ryan felt nothing but emptiness. He watched as Jenna moved across the dance floor, her gown catching the light, her laughter soft, effortless. She looked radiant, glowing in a way he had never seen before. And beside her, James. His hand rested securely on Jenna's waist, his touch gentle but certain, like he had always belonged there, like he always would. They swayed together, perfectly in sync, lost in a world that no longer included him. Ryan's fingers curled into fists at his sides. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Jenna let out a soft sigh as she rested her head against James's shoulder. The steady rhythm of their sway made her feel weightless. She exhaled slowly, studying him, really studying him. There was something different about the way he was looking at her now. Something familiar, yet entirely new. "How long?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. James raised an eyebrow. "How long what? How long have you felt this way?" James didn't hesitate. "Since the first time you laughed at one of my terrible jokes." Jenna let out an amused breath. "James, you always make terrible jokes." "Exactly," he said, grinning. "And you're the only one who ever laughed at them." She rolled her eyes playfully, but warmth spread through her chest. "That's not true." "Oh, it is," he said, dipping her slightly before pulling her back up. "I used to test them out on Ryan first, just to see if I had a shot." Jenna bit her lip to keep from smiling. James scoffed. He'd just give me that deadpan look and say, "Jesus, James, is this why Mom still asks if you have a real job?" Jenna laughed, the sound light and genuine. "That sounds like him." James smirked, his fingers grazing over her back in slow, lazy circles. "You want to know something else?" "What?" "You made it really hard for me to hate him." Jenna arched an eyebrow. "Hate him?" James nodded, tilting his head as he studied her. "You were always so damn loyal, always defending him, always looking at him like he was the best thing in the world. It was frustrating." Jenna swallowed. "Why?" "Because," James said, brushing a stray curl from her face, "I wanted to be the one you looked at like that." Her breath caught. She couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but let those words settle over her. James must have noticed, because his smirk softened into something else, something deeper, something patient. He let the silence stretch between them as if giving her time to process what he had just admitted. And Jenna, she didn't need time. She already knew. Maybe she had been blind before, but now she saw everything clearly. Jenna exhaled, tilting her head up to meet his gaze. "You don't have to wish for that anymore." James stilled. And then, ever so slowly, a breathtaking smile spread across his face. "Yeah?" he murmured. Jenna nodded, her fingers curling around the lapel of his suit. "Yeah." James let out a soft breath, his forehead pressing lightly against hers. "Guess I finally told a joke worth laughing at," he whispered. Jenna laughed, softly shaking her head. "Shut up and dance, James." And as he twirled her under the glow of the fairy lights, as her laughter mixed with his, as they swayed together in a world that was finally theirs. Ryan, watching from the shadows, realized something. Some betrayals shatter you. Others set you free. Dear friend, sometimes the people we trust the most turn out to be the very ones who break us. But as the Stoics remind us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Jenna didn't choose betrayal, but she chose how to rise from it. She transformed her pain into clarity, her heartbreak into power. She stood not as a victim, but as someone who decided she would no longer be defined by someone else's choices. We all face moments where the ground crumbles beneath us. What defines us is not what happens, but who we become in the aftermath. And maybe, just maybe, what feels like the end is the start of something far greater. So if you're walking through something dark, keep walking with your head high and your heart steady. Because freedom often comes in the moments we thought we would break. With strength and heart, your storyteller. Like this story? Then don't just walk away. Tap that like, hit subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that even betrayal can be the beginning of something beautiful.